Hey
everybody.
Welcome back to the True Crime Sisters channel. Today we are going to talk about Jennifer Pan. Well, we're going to get into the story because this one's, well, maybe not as fucked up as
The last one.
Yeah, William, but still pretty messed up in its own right.
She's definitely a character.
Yes.
Alright, so Jennifer Pan was born on June 17th, 1986 in Ontario, Canada. Her father's name is Han Pan and her mother's name was Bic Pan. Han and Bic were both born in Vietnam and they immigrated to Canada. The two later met and got married, and they decided to settle down in
Scarborough.
Yeah, my pronunciation is not on point. Canada. They had Jennifer in 1986, and then they had her brother Felix in 1989. The Pans both worked at an auto parts manufacturing company. They both worked extremely hard and were trying to provide a better life for their children that they did not have while they were growing up. By 2004, the Pans had saved up $200,000 and they were able to purchase a large house in a nice neighborhood. Han drove a Mercedes-Benz and Bic drove an Lexus. So they were doing pretty well for themselves and for their children. The Pans were known as what some people will call tiger parents. Tiger parenting is a strict form of parenting where the parents are extremely controlling over their children's lives, and they often have unrealistic goals and expectations for them. The Pans wanted their children to take every opportunity they could possibly take in order to make sure that they would be successful in their lives.
So Felix studied mechanical engineering because Han wanted him to work in the car parts industry like he and Bic did, but he wanted Felix to be designing the cars instead of building them like they did. And Jennifer was also always extremely busy. She had been taking piano lessons since she was 4 years old. She played the flute in band, and she also did figure skating and spent most of her days practicing. Her original goal was to compete in the Olympics, but she suffered from a knee injury and she could no longer skate because of that. So while the Pans thought that she had perfect grades in school, she actually had pretty average grades, mostly staying in the C range. But she would forge her grade cards so her parents would think that she was getting straight A's. And throughout high school, Jennifer was always watched very closely by her parents. She wasn't allowed to attend school functions, go on dates, or really have much of a social life at all. But despite not being able to date, in 11th grade she met Daniel Wong, who also played in the band. And things got going between the two of them when they went on a school trip to perform at different venues in Europe. She had suffered an asthma attack while they were there and said that Daniel was really there for her during that time, and soon after they began dating.
Jennifer was granted early admission to Ryerson University due to her grades and the fact that she had failed a class. They revoked her early admission. However, she could not tell her parents that because they would have been very upset with her. So she decided to create a fake acceptance letter to show her parents. And as it turned out, she actually never even graduated high school due to her failing grades. Originally, Han wanted Jennifer to become a doctor. However, he realized that wasn't a good fit for her because she was kind of squeamish when it came to more of the gory side of things. So he decided she should be a pharmacologist instead. So Jennifer told her parents that she had won scholarships so they wouldn't have to question her about why they weren't paying any money for her schooling, and she told them that she was going to go to Ryerson University for 2 years, and then she would be accepted into a pharmacology program at Toronto University. She even went as far as to buy the textbooks and watch videos so she could create notebooks full of class notes, just so it would appear that she was actually taking classes. Jennifer would teach piano lessons on the side, and she was also working in a restaurant at that time, so she was able to have some money.
Yeah, she went to pretty good lengths to
Measurements for
cover herself. Yeah.
that'd be exhausting.
Yeah. So, after 2 years of being in college at Ryerson, she was then accepted to the pharmacology program at Toronto University. She asked her parents if she could move in with her friend who lived closer to campus so that she wouldn't have to commute as far. And they agreed to let her move and said that she could stay there during the week and then she would just come home on weekends. However, she was not actually staying with her friend. She was actually going to stay with her boyfriend, Daniel. So 2 more years pass with her pretending to be in college, and at this point now, her parents think that she's been in school for 4 years. So she was due to be graduating soon, and she and Daniel hired somebody online to create a fake transcript with perfect grades. She then told her parents that there were so many people graduating that year that they had only given 1 ticket per person, and that she didn't want to make them feel bad and choose who went, so she just gave her ticket to a friend instead. And after graduation, she told her parents she would be volunteering at a blood testing lab and that she would be working late nights and on the weekends as well. So she told them that because of this, she would need to spend most of her time at her friend's house.
Her parents began to notice that she didn't have a badge or uniform for the hospital she was working at. So one day they decided that they would take her to the hospital for one of her shifts to see what was going on. As soon as they got there, Jennifer bolted inside the hospital, and Han and Vic went inside to find her and check out the situation. Jennifer hid out in the emergency room for a while until she thought her parents had left and it was safe for her to leave. Because of this, her parents started becoming pretty suspicious of Jennifer and thought they were probably being lied to. So the following day, they called the friend that she was supposed to be staying with, and she told them that Jennifer was not there. When Jennifer got home, they confronted her about all their suspicions, and she confessed to some of the things that she had been lying about. She told them that she was not actually working at the hospital, and that she was not going to Toronto University, and she also admitted that she hadn't been living with her friend, but instead she was living with her boyfriend, Daniel. But she maintained that she did graduate high school and that she did go to Ryerson University for 2 years.
So, Han and Vic were pissed, obviously. They took away her laptop and her phone. They made her quit her job at the restaurant she was working at. And they demanded that she stop seeing Daniel. They also started keeping track of her mileage in her car, making sure that she was only going where she was supposed to. And Jennifer was 24 years old at this time. So kind of
I feel like that's a
bit,
lot of punishments for a 24
for 20,
year
yeah. She was
Like,
very old to be that.
She's young. She made mistakes. I understand their
Yeah.
their expectations, but
Yeah. I mean, and she didn't do anything that awful,
she
at
lied.
this point.
I mean, what kid doesn't
Yeah.
lie?
But, so she would still see Daniel whenever she could. And once she tried the classic trick of putting pillows under her blanket to make it look as if she was sleeping. And she snuck out to see him. But
Never did that.
but the next morning, her mom went into her room and discovered that she wasn't there. So her parents told her that she could either go back to school and stop seeing Daniel, or they would kick her out. And since she hadn't even graduated high school, she started working on her high school diploma. But see, it's funny because that was her out right there. Go back to school or get out. Like, that's what she wanted. She didn't want to be under their control anymore. So I don't know why she wouldn't have just said, okay, I'll leave and go with Daniel.
Yeah.
Because that was what she wanted all along.
Daniel decided to end things with Jennifer because it was just too hard for them to have a relationship with her parents being so controlling. He soon started up a new relationship with someone else, a girl named Christine. Jennifer was pretty jealous that he started seeing someone new, so Jennifer decided to tell Daniel that one night some men broke into her house and assaulted her. She then called to tell him that she received a bullet in the mail after the assault. She told Daniel that his girlfriend Christine was behind all of these things. In the spring, Jennifer reconnected with an old friend she knew from school by the name of Andrew. According to Jennifer, Andrew had told her that at one point he thought about killing his father. After Andrew told her this, she started thinking about how killing her own father would help solve many of her problems. So Andrew then introduced her to a man named Ricardo Duncan. They met in a grocery store parking lot, and she gave him $1,500 to murder her father. However, he backed out from committing the murder and just took the money. But Ricardo later said that Jennifer once gave him $200 unrelated to the murder, but that he paid her back. He also said he turned down Jennifer and did not accept the $1,500 from her when she asked him to kill her father.
So then Jennifer and Daniel end up getting back together, and they come up with a plan to not only murder Han, but both of her parents. They plan to hire a hitman. Hitman?
I've been messing with words all night.
They plan to hire a hitman, and then she would inherit $500,000, and they would live happily ever after.
The end.
Yeah. And so Daniel gave Jennifer a burner phone and connected her with a man by the nickname of Homeboy. His real name was Lenford Crawford, which I had to actually Google that a few times because I'm like, are you sure it's not Leonard? Like Lenford Crawford? Anyway, he said, Lenford said he would commit the murders for $10,000 and that he had a friend named David who would be helping him. And they all decided that this would go down on November 8th, 2010. So, November 8th rolls around, and at 8 p.m., Han went to bed. Vic was out line dancing and came home around 9:30 p.m. She then sat down in the living room to watch some TV, and Jennifer spoke to David on the phone. She went upstairs, or she went downstairs, I'm sorry. She went downstairs and said goodnight to her mom, and then she unlocked the door before going to bed, or supposedly going to bed.
At 10 p.m., the signal, which was flicking on and off a light, was given for the men to enter the house. Jennifer talked to David on the phone again, and they also sent a few text messages back and forth. One of the text messages read VIP access, which is assumed to mean that was a go-ahead for them to come inside the house. David Linford and another man whose name was Eric Carty all entered the house. One of the men ran upstairs to get Han and brought him downstairs. David also went upstairs to get Jennifer, supposedly. She later tells police that the intruders made her go around the entire house and collect any money that she could find that was just laying around. She gave them $2,500 of her own money that she had been saving from her restaurant job, and then found an additional $11,000. $11,000.
Yeah.
In her mother's dresser.
Rich people problems.
I need me a dresser like that.
Can't relate. Yeah.
No, definitely not. She then told police that they tied her hands to a banister with a shoestring. The men took Han and Bick downstairs and then shot them both.
So then Jennifer calls 911.
My dad just went outside screaming.
Do you think your mom is downstairs too?
I don't hear her anymore.
And on the 911 phone call recording, you can hear Han screaming in the background. And he runs outside and a neighbor sees him, and that neighbor also calls 911. So paramedics take Han to the hospital and he is put into an induced coma. And police interview Jennifer, where she maintained that it was a random attack. But they were still confused on how she was able to call 911 because she was tied up. So 2 days later, they brought her back in for a second interview and walked her through how everything happened. They tried to recreate how she was able to call while being tied up. But there were a few things that just didn't add up to police. Being that this was a supposed robbery, no jewelry or electronics were stolen. Their car keys were laying out, but the cars were not stolen. And police also discovered more cash inside of the house. They also found it odd that the intruders didn't bring any weapons other than their guns. Like, they didn't bring any tools to actually break into the house, which suggested to them that they knew that the door wouldn't be locked. And the biggest red flag, of course, was why wasn't Jennifer harmed? And during Bick's funeral, the police had someone go undercover and observe how she was reacting. And they really just observed her acting fine and just nonchalant. But sadly, Han wasn't able to attend the funeral because of his injuries and being in the hospital. So that's sad.
Yeah. On November 12th, Han woke up from his coma. He had severe injuries. He even had bullet fragments still stuck in his face. Remarkably, he was able to recall the events that took place that night. He speaks to the police and tells them that he saw Jennifer talking to the men as if they were just old pals and not intruders. He also tells them that she was not tied to the banister, but that she was just walking around the house freely with all of the men that was in there. Police brought Jennifer back for a third interview, and it was a very extensive one. It lasted nearly 9 hours. And in Canada, it is legal for the police to lie during interrogations in order to obtain a confession. So the interrogating officer told her that they had infrared satellite technology and that this technology would show the movements throughout the house that night. Jennifer eventually cracks and she tells the police that she lied. However, she doesn't really tell them the truth. She has a habit of doing that.
Yeah.
She tells them that she did, in fact, hire the men, but that she hired them to come into her house and kill her, not her parents. She said she was very depressed and not happy with her life anymore, but was too afraid to end it herself. But she says the men got confused and accidentally killed her parents instead.
Likely. They just get confused. They're like, I don't know who to shoot. And then the other guy's like, let's just shoot someone.
Comes in when the parents are there.
Yeah.
Like they're really going to allow them to kill their daughter.
Right. Yeah, I don't think she thought anything past the hiring.
She had time
through.
to make up another lie.
Yeah.
But Jennifer was arrested on November 22nd, 2010. Police needed to figure out the names of the 3 men, so they went through all of her phone records to find out. Since she had tons of phone calls and text messages to them, they were able to easily find this out. All the men who went to her house that night, plus her boyfriend Daniel, were arrested. The trial began on March 19th, 2014, and it lasted for almost 10 months. They had around 50 people to testify in court, and Jennifer herself had to take the stand for 7 days. During these 7 days, she claimed that she tried to cancel the hit against her parents, but wasn't able to. So that kind of backfires. She said they were there to kill her.
Yeah.
Not her parents.
Then she's like, oh, psych, I just canceled it.
But that was disrupted pretty quickly because all of the text messages and phone calls from the same day proving they were still making plans for the murder that night. Her defense tried to argue the tiger parenting as an excuse for her actions.
And, obviously this didn't work. And Jennifer, Daniel, David, and Linford were convicted on December 13th, receiving life without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Eric's trial was delayed for a bit, and in 2015, he took a plea deal and he got 18 years. Han and Felix obtained a court order so Jennifer would not be able to contact them at all. And Jennifer was also ordered to have no contact with Daniel ever again. And eventually Felix moves away, and Han suffers greatly from the events that took place that day, which I can only imagine.
Yeah.
He can no longer work due to his injuries. He has severe anxiety, nightmares, and just trouble sleeping. And Jennifer will be able to apply for parole at the age of 49. And they're all being held in separate prisons. And Eric actually died in his cell in 2018. So, that's the story of Jennifer.
Super sad for her dad, Han.
Mm-hmm. And, I understand this whole, tiger parenting thing, because obviously they put extreme amounts of pressure on her to be successful, and that's just not what she wanted. But again, like we were saying earlier,
and they have these dreams. I know a lot of parents do this. They live through their kids.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we expect you to do these certain things, when they're well, what about my dreams? And they're oh no, you don't have no dreams, you have my
then that's what they did with Felix, except Felix just accepted it and went with it. They wanted him.
She was more rebellious.
Yeah, they wanted
against
him
it.
to be in the same industry, but at a higher, level, and he just went with it. But so yeah, I can.
And some kids are fine with that.
Yeah,
Seems like.
yeah. I mean, who knows how Felix feels
Really feels
about it? I
He
mean,
probably just accepted.
might-
Oh, this is the way things are.
yeah, he might not have been thrilled, but yeah. So like, I understand that, but again, like, they said to her, go back to school or leave. I mean, I just don't understand why she didn't take that opportunity to just leave.
Bye.
And because all of this that she did at the end was so she wasn't under their rules anymore. When she could have just left originally and went with Daniel. I mean, that's what she was living with Daniel anyways.
Yeah.
So she could have just taken off and gone back with him and everything would have been fine. She would have had her own life. I mean,
And I mean, how exhausting covering up
all the
one lie
lies.
with another
Yes.
one and then trying to keep it going. It's like a double life.
Yeah.
You
And I
literally
mean-
have to play like you're acting,
Yeah.
role playing.
Especially with all of these like grade cards and like even having to like fake the transcripts. I mean,
That
they
takes
had to
some
like
time.
they had to hire somebody to do that. Like
That's
obviously
crazy.
it's not. Yeah, she really went to.
Some levels.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't understand why she just didn't take her out when she had it. I mean,
And then she had a opportunity to come out with everything, but she just minimized it.
yeah, still
I'll
lied.
just like tell the truth about this stuff.
Yeah, just a
but
half truth kind of thing.
When it would have been just best, like just
Just
get
to tell it
done and
all.
over with, and it would probably been such a weight
Yeah,
off of her.
like I wonder what would have happened if she would have just been like, "Mom, Dad, listen, I don't
I
want
messed
to
up.
do this. Like, I'm gonna go down a different path. Like, I hope you're okay with that." I just wonder how things. I mean, obviously they wouldn't have been thrilled, but I mean, from everything we know about them, it doesn't seem like they were that bad of people. They were just, like you said, trying to live through them. So, like, they might have accepted it and all is well. I think if she was just honest about it, it might have been, turned out way better. But I can imagine, like, Han, all that he's suffering probably, to this day would be just crazy. Like, waking up and seeing your wife like dead and just like and then to wake up again out of your coma and be like, it was my daughter, because like he was all like,
yeah, that's the most insane part.
Yeah.
Like, knowing your child put out a hit on you.
yeah,
Your own child betrayed you.
yeah,
That's a lot.
I know.
In
And
itself, that's just a
and
lot.
it's weird because I feel like a lot of times when things like this happen, like, because they even went and they were like, we don't ever want to hear from her ever again. But I feel like a lot of times when you see stories like this, the parents are still kind of like, mad, but like they still will like talk to their child and,
Eventually,
Yeah.
maybe.
but they were just like, no. Don't want to ever hear from her again. I wondered how she felt about not having to have contact with Daniel, because she was pretty obsessed with him.
Yeah.
So she was probably really pissed off about that. So that is it for us today, I guess.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think about this in the comments. Also, case suggestions if you have them, you can leave those in the comment, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. So we will see you guys next
Next
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, we did that last time.
I
remember?
know.
All right, see you guys next Tuesday.
Bye.